Rabbi say, stay tuned. There's a gewaldige podcast. Rabbi Steve Geller does a gewaldige Zach, and that'll be coming out this week. Torah Giants on Chumash. Shalom Uvrach, and welcome to the weekly piece on the Parsha from Torah Giants on Chumash, written by Rabbi Yitzchak Meir Goodman, the Rabbi Emeritus of Yunusov Rockaway. Sit back and enjoy.
Welcome to Torah Giants on Chumash. I'm Steve Geller. In this week's Parsha, Eikev, Rabbi Goodman brings a Shlah HaKodesh that makes an incredibly profound point. One that is especially fascinating to me, and let me quickly explain. For many Baalei Tshuva in the 1970s and 80s, especially ones growing up outside of large Jewish metropolitan areas, our exposure to Judaism was shockingly limited. For me, growing up in the Deep South, Fiddler on the Roof was just about the most extensive Jewish exposure I had growing up. My dad, who was originally from an observant home, from parents who had come over from Poland in 1905, built a dairy farm in Monticello, loved the movie, the music, and must have related to the backdrop of the story. Dad also had a beautiful singing voice. We listened to the soundtrack in the car, the house, and I learned all the songs by heart at a very young age. His favorite line from his favorite song is actually the subject of today's piece. In Fiddler, Tevye imagines what it would be like to be rich, describing the large house he would build, the beautiful clothes and servants he'd get for his wife. But his favorite line was about how, being rich, people would come to ask him all sorts of difficult questions.
And it won't make one bit of difference if I answer right or wrong.
When you're rich, they think you really know.
That, of course, was Chaim Topol as Tevye in the 1971 movie. The other was my dad performing with the Jewish American War Veterans Troupe in a show that they put on for one of the nursing homes in Phoenix, Arizona in the early 90s. In this week's Parsha, Moshe is describing what happens if we keep the mitzvahs in the Torah. Your cattle, your sheep, and your goats will increase, and you will increase your silver and gold for yourselves, and everything you have will increase. Rabbi Goodman, in his typical clear and sometimes blunt way, brings a Shlah HaKodesh that perfectly illuminates this scene from Fiddler. The Holy Shlah writes that this verse hints at an observed phenomenon that people of wealth are usually credited with being Torah scholars, philosophers, and generally brilliant by anyone who seeks their favors or friendship, even if they're ignoramuses. This is actually a warning by Moshe that these gifts of wealth will, among other things, blind us as to the very source of those great gifts. Rabbi Goodman brings us a famous mishna from Pirkei Avos. Ben Zoma Omer, Ben Zoma says, Ezehu Ashir, who is rich, Hasamech Bechalko, one who rejoices in his lot. Rav Goodman, in rare form, quotes a Rav Wolf Boskowitz who wrote, according to Rabbi Goodman, with intended humor, what kind of question is this? We all know exactly what rich means. Perhaps what Boskowitz thought Ben Zoma was asking who is only rich, but not necessarily anything else. Since people of wealth are automatically Torah scholars, wise, handsome, generous, and every other compliment we can bestow, Ben Zoma wanted to know who is only rich without all the other titles. The answer, he suggested, is the people who are wealthy simply because they're happy with their portion. Rabbi Goodman takes this to a much deeper level with an analysis of Chazal telling us that it is the nature of people that whatever they possess, they secretly want double. In Koheles Rabbah, it says, he who has 100 desires 200. Therefore, nobody can be truly rich because they are never happy with what they have. They secretly want double. In this light, Ben Zoma's question becomes, who is this happy person who defies human nature? He's happy even though he desires double. Ben Zoma answers again perfectly, it is he who is nevertheless happy with his portion, even though he wants more. That is why the expression is not happy with what he has. He recognizes that his chelek, literally his portion, doesn't satisfy his desires. But it is the fact that he is still happy despite this apparent shortcoming that makes him wealthy. Just a beautiful insight into the pasuk in our parsha and the Mishnah in Pirkei Avos that is constantly teaching us about ourselves and the Torah world we navigate. I'm a huge Talmud of Rav Noach Weinberg ZT'L, and I highly recommend that you find and listen to everything that he's recorded. Most especially, there's a shir called The 5 Levels of Pleasure and his foundational series, The 48 Ways of Wisdom. Over several shirim, Rav Noach paints the perfect picture of this Mishnah in Pirkei Avos with an amazing example. Imagine a 30-year-old young man born completely blind. One day he gets a phone call. It's his doctor who tells him, you're coming into my office tomorrow for a new surgery that will give you back your eyesight. The next day we'll remove your bandages and you'll be able to see perfectly. The young man is cautiously thrilled. He goes in the next day, has the surgery. The day after that, with his family around, they remove the bandages and he can see for the first time. Just amazing. Rav Noach asks, is there a happier person on the earth in that moment? Probably not. This is the very definition of joy. At that moment, a man walks into the room with a briefcase, opens it up, and offers this young man $1 billion for his eyesight. For $1 billion, he simply has to go back to his regular sightless life. Does anyone believe this young man takes that deal? Seems very unlikely. That means this young man knows his eyesight is worth more than $1 billion. This is the meaning of the Mishnah, Ezehu Asher Hasamech B'chalko. But Rav Noach asks the most important question. How long is it going to take for this young man to get used to his eyes? 2 weeks, 2 months? When does he wake up like the rest of us and only thinking about everything he has to do that day? Rav Noach tells us, if this guy who was born blind and opened his eyes for the first time at 30, if he could get used to his eyes and take them for granted, there's nothing he'd be able to buy for $1 billion that would make him as happy as he was just opening his eyes for the first time. So we who've had our eyes our whole lives, shouldn't we be even happier? If we could tap into that gratitude of just the gift of opening our eyes that some people can't do, that gratitude is what we're out running around looking for. It's right here. Ezehu Asher Hasamech B'chalko. Have a wonderful Shabbos.